Not sure if you found the right one or if you're caught up in codependency? Keep watching to find out.
So in today's video, we're going to talk about 3 differences between finding a soulmate and being in a codependent relationship. I do want to define soulmate a little bit. Some of you guys might really resonate with the soulmate term. Some of you might resonate more with the life partner term, whichever that is. We're talking about a relationship that is important in your life that you are working to forge a future with. So first on the list, can you do things as individuals and do you still have your own interests? A truly healthy relationship is an exhibit of 2 people who are whole, joining together to share their lives with one another. You cannot lose sight of who you are when you're in a relationship. This is a really foundational piece of being healthy and not being codependent. So we actually enhance our partner's life when we bring our authentic self to the table. It adds just a zest and a different opportunity for them to grow and learn and share in new experiences that maybe you bring to the table or that your partner brings to the table. It's a way to just expand our own selves and still really fulfill that deeper level of who we are when we are in a relationship with our partner. If you find yourself in a relationship where you can't bring yourself, your authentic self to the table, this is probably when you are exhibiting codependent behaviors, and it's probably a red flag.
Man, I love that. I love the fact that you talked about 2 whole people coming together, Sybil. I mean, that is so important. That's a relatively new awareness for me. And once I understood that, it was no longer I need someone to quote unquote complete me. No. So that's the point I'm going to talk about, which is, are you massively insecure when the other person is not around? And that is that whole dynamic that you see in movies and, oh, you complete me, just like I just talked about. And, oh my gosh, I'm nothing without you. And I don't deserve someone as good as you. And all these kinds of comments. You mentioned red flags. They're all red flags that you may be sliding into codependency. You cannot get into that situation. And just to reemphasize what you said in that first point, Sybil, it is so important to be whole yourself, whatever that looks like. I mean, for me, it took finding God and no longer chasing the stuff of this world and understanding that I'm a child of God. And that's it. That is my identity as a child of God. And once I did that, and once I started developing my relationship with Jesus, it was like, wow, this is easy. So if you find yourself in a situation where you think, I need somebody, be careful. That could be a sign that you're sliding into codependence. It's fine to want somebody. It's fine to want to spend time with somebody. That's beautiful. But if it turns into a need, then it could be trouble. Also, if you find yourself apart from that person and you turn to drinking, or you turn to binge watching Netflix, or you turn to anything that's kind of mind numbing, turn to things that are going to just distract you until you're with this person again, that is another sign that you're massively insecure. In this case, that is not healthy for you. You know, we always look for signs from people and signs from soulmates, as Sybil clarified the soulmate thing. So, you know, all of these things, I think for me, it really rests in your identity. And if you put your identity in that other person, number one, that is an insecurity there. And number two, you're not being fair to that other person. Just think about all of the pressure being put on your spouse or significant other. If you say, well, it's up to you, you are going to provide everything for me, you will complete me. Well, that's a lot of pressure to put on somebody. I mean, it is like, whoa, massively a lot of pressure. And if that person starts to perceive that and feel that pressure, guess what? It's gonna build, because they're not going to be able to fulfill those needs, and it's just going to turn into conflict. So this is such a vital topic, I think, for today's world, Sybil, that I'm so glad that we're speaking on this today. So those are some thoughts I had on, are you massively insecure when the other person is not around? How about you? Do you have anything about, do you have constant worries about the other person's faithfulness, Sybil?
Yeah, so this is another one, and it really runs in well with what you just talked about there. I love that you brought up those phrases that are used so often, like, you complete me. It's like, no, you complete you. We get to be together and be this awesome, like, extension of each other, and not like, yeah, I love that you brought that up. So yeah, if you're somebody who has constant worries about the other person's faithfulness in your relationship, I just want to say this is really a two-part thing. And there could be two things at play going on here. And you really need to check in with yourself if you're feeling these ways, because one, it could be intuition and your gut feeling. That is something that we innately have as human beings. We have this connection to our energetic self, like our soul self, that allows us to perceive things that maybe you can't see or aren't bearing witness to, like in the physical reality, but you can feel them happening. And so if you're feeling that and you've got that constant worry going on, there's a good chance that there's something happening on the other end of this relationship that your partner is doing that is probably not healthy for the relationship. Or this could be the other case. And this is why it's really important to know about this so that you can make sure who it's coming from. So maybe your partner's doing something and they're being unfaithful and it's causing all this, intuition to rise up into your gut and you're like, what's going on? Or are you carrying baggage yourself from a previous relationship that you've been in that is actually unhealed and repressed emotions? This is something that I think a lot of people forget about, or maybe don't even know or have that awareness that this is a way that we self-sabotage. And so if you're somebody who's been through relationships in the past, maybe you've been with somebody in a relationship and they were unfaithful, and then you come into a new relationship that you guys could be two whole individuals and you're coming into here and you are just resorting back to those old feelings that you felt in a previous relationship. Maybe not even know that you're doing it, but it's really important for you to check in with this, because it's one or the other. If you're having these feelings of like, something doesn't feel right here, it's the other person and your energetic intuition, or it's you self-sabotaging because of previous experiences. And if it is you, you really need to take the time to self-reflect and to do the work to release some of that. There's lots of different ways you can do that. You can check that out, YouTube it. Maybe we'll do a video on that soon. But you should definitely be aware of where that's coming from, because if it is you that's bringing that from a past experience into the relationship, you could really be ruining something that's really beautiful, because you haven't healed something that's happened to you in the past. And I think that happens to a lot of people. I think that we project a lot of our unhealed traumas onto relationships, especially when it's a romantic relationship and you're looking for that lifelong partnership that you can really flourish. And if you're not aware of some stuff that maybe you have to work on, you could really be hurting this awesome relationship that could be. Or maybe you're just intuitive and it is something on that other person's part. But either way, you should have awareness around that and really check in if that check engine light is going off in the current relationship that you're in.
Such good wisdom, Sybil. Oh my goodness. I was taking notes as you were going along there. I want to talk a little bit about, some of those things. And what came to mind as you were talking, I'm so glad you brought up both sides of that. Intuition, what I call Holy Spirit. Yes, you have to pay attention to that for sure. But this dynamic of bringing past wounds into a new relationship is so sneaky, and it can show up so easily. And one of the things that I noted was, this is something that I've had to speak into myself, is don't take it personal. If someone is triggered from a past relationship, which it's going to happen, and they display something that demonstrates that the trust is broken down, or they are worried about something, you can't take it personal. I know easier said than done, so my tendency in the past is I would get defensive, and be like, well, I can't even believe that you think that I would even, and get real defensive. It's not the way to go. Make sure, your foundation, you don't want to be codependent. So you want to make sure that the foundation of your relationship is all about talking about the little things, talking about the things that twinge you, because you're both going to get triggered and you won't even be able to probably notice it that you're triggered. So the fact that you can not take it personally, I'll recommend a good book that we're all familiar with, at least you and I are, and I'm sure everybody in our community is, called The Four Agreements. And it talks about those things. Is you can have heaven on earth if your word is impeccable, you don't take anything personal, you do your best, don't make assumptions. Yeah, don't make assumptions. So if you go into just a relationship that way, I think that is a great resource. And again, easier said than done, but boy, oh boy, is that so good. And then the other thing that I've learned on this topic is, again, I don't know if you're a God person, open like I am, Sybil, and who know, it doesn't matter really where you're at on that whole spectrum. I read something here in the last 6 months that was beautiful. It said that when you're in a relationship with somebody, those things that grade you about them, those things that are like, oh, they kind of twinge you, those are the things that God is working through them to reveal to you that you need to work on. So powerful. So again, it's one of those awareness things that I think, at least once I've become aware of it, it's been really powerful in my life. So, you know, those are some suggestions that I would have based on my own personal experience with this dynamic. And just the last thing I'll add is listen to your friends, be intent about talking to your friends and say, hey, I don't want to be in a codependent relationship. You may have had tendencies to be in one in the past. So share that with your friends and say, hey, I want you to look out for me and I want you to speak into me if you notice any of those things. And it's up to me then to be open to it and not get defensive. Any additional advice from you, Sybil?
That is just such wise counsel. I think you've given some really great advice to people. I cannot recommend the 4 agreements enough, whether it's you doing work on just yourself so that you can bring your best version of you to the table, or really just working through it with your partner. Maybe if you guys are looking for ways to kind of resolve some things that maybe you feel like, maybe there's a little codependence going on, but we've got a good thing going here. Like, let's work through some of the stuff that maybe we brought in as baggage. I think that's great advice. I also love that you talked about tapping in your friends. If you have quality friends and we trust our friends' opinions on a lot of different things and we seek advice from them. So I think it's a great thing to do is to really put that out there. Like, hey, this is what I don't want. Please, like, let me know. And then be willing to listen to your friends when they're speaking into your life. Sometimes it can be hard when maybe we don't want to, but I think it's good advice to be sure that we take in some counsel from our friends and family who do have our best interests at heart. So the last thing is, I love that you talked about how these things are being revealed to us. We are mirrors for each other. And so when you're in a relationship, there's a lot of things that happen that is like, oh, maybe that's an awareness for me that I'm supposed to work through that trigger. Our triggers are our best teachers. So I love that you brought that up. With that, I think that we've covered some good grounds. We hope that this was helpful for you guys. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe with the notification bell to receive our regular updates.
Yeah, and comment down below. This can be with questions or answers to questions that you ask. And we will see you next time on our journey from isolation to community, where the next step beyond is freedom. Remember, every Wednesday at 4:30 Eastern, we're dropping another video. So we'll see you soon.